Alright guys, so today we're going to be rust bluing this receiver. This can be used on different types of steel. It doesn't have to be a receiver. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to first clean off the receiver of any dirt or grease. You're going to want to, you can use dish soap just to clean it off. You don't need to use a dedicated degreaser or solvent. Dish soap would work just fine. You can see actually, I just used some lead off soap, and it got it pretty clean. You can actually see surface rust, and that's fine. We're going to be converting that rust anyways. So after you got it degreased and cleaned, you're going to want to sand. You're going to want to make sure you have the right texture you want. So I want to have a matte finish on here, and not a very shiny finish. So I'm going to sandblast this and make sure I have the correct texture. Alright guys, so now I've finished sandblasting it. We just want to make sure we don't go and touch it with our bare hands anymore. Before you start bluing, you want to check that you got everywhere, at least on the outside. I went and rinsed this with some water just to get off the blast media. So you want to check that you hit all the spots. There's nowhere that you missed with your sandblaster. If it's I live in a pretty dry climate, so I don't really have to worry about it rusting too bad. It doesn't really matter if you get some light rust, but if you start getting some bad rust, that may be a problem. But for me, I can wait on starting the bluing process. If you do have a really humid climate and you're not able to start the process right away, I would go and probably go and try to oil up this receiver and try to degrease it before you start bluing. That's not ideal because it's harder to get out the grease, but it might be worth it since you might get some pitting otherwise. So for me, light rust doesn't matter. We're going to convert that to black oxide anyways, so I'll go and get that set up and I'll show you guys what to do next. Also, one more note is we want to make sure we're not touching this with our bare hands, so we're not getting our hand grease on there, fingerprint oils and such. You can degrease it, but it's just easier to wear gloves. Alright, I'll see you guys after I got the bluing stuff set up. Hey guys, so some additional notes before we get into the bluing process. If you see any oil spots, make sure you clean it and degrease your part. There may be some additional oil trapped in between mating surfaces that may leak out, which you will have to clean. Keep in mind that you can touch up existing bluing with this process, and sandblasting / polishing isn't required. Also keep in mind the finish will be slightly more matte than what you started with. This is due to the microscopic pitting with the rusting process. If you want a mirror finish, look into hot or niter bluing. Alright, on the left we have our rinse pans, which we rinse our parts in after applying the rust solution. Next we have our rust solution, which is hydrogen peroxide along with salt. We use the salt as a catalyst to help the receiver rust faster, and the hydrogen peroxide is our acid to help it rust. So we want to use hydrogen peroxide, as when we heat it up it'll decompose into water and stop the rusting, so this prevents pitting. Next we have our gloves. I use thick dishwashing gloves. This helps give me some heat protection while holding the hot parts, and then we primarily use this to prevent any oil from getting on our parts, along with protecting ourselves from the heat. Next we have our tongs. We use these to get our parts out of the water. Next we have our wash bottles. I like to use water bottles since they're very convenient. You just fill them with DI water or some filtered water. We use this to remove any remaining salt on our part before we put it back in our bath. Then we have our brush. We use this to apply a rust solution to our parts. Next we have the carding tools. So I have a toothbrush and some Denim Rags. I use a toothbrush for the small and hard to reach areas, while I use the denim for the large surfaces. You can just use some old beat up jeans, and for toothbrush, you probably have one lying around. Next we have our heat gun. We use this to keep our parts hot and to break down any hydrogen peroxide before it can cause pitting on our parts. Then for my bath I use two portable heaters with a steam pan filled with DI water. This allows me to move the setup and put it away. Alright, so this is going to be my first pass with the rust blue. I'm going to first put the receiver in the bath just to convert any surface rust that formed while it was uncoated with oil. So I'm going to use my tongs to put it in the bath. Then I'm going to leave that in the bath for about 5 to 10 minutes to let the rust convert, and then we're going to take it out. So your water doesn't need to be boiling, it just needs to be near the boiling point. I found to give me more consistent results when I go and have it near the boiling point, but not at a rolling boil. It'll still convert the rust and it'll be a lot less rough. So I went ahead and skipped to the third application of the rust solution, since I felt that gave a lot better footage at representing how to do the process. So if you're wondering why it got so dark so quickly, that's the reason why. Alright, so make sure you're topping off your water, otherwise you may have to rotate the part if it's not fully covered. So here I'm using the tongs to remove the part from the water. The gloves help to handle the receiver since it's hot. Now you can see that we got some spots on there. That's perfectly normal. As we go and do more passes on this, the spots become larger and larger till it's all black. Alright, so now I'm going to go and card off the rest of the rust that's left over after going and converting it. I'm going to use denim here, and if I miss any spots or there's any hard to reach spots, I can use a toothbrush to get at those. So now I carded off the rust, or as much as I can. I'm going to go and get ready to apply this rust solution. So I'm going to want my heat gun on, and then I'm dipping my brush in the rust solution. So I'm going to heat up the receiver, and we want to make sure we're not getting rust solution on there for too long. If we do, it may cause pitting. So the heat gun will also go and destroy the acid, which is the hydrogen peroxide. So when you see I apply it, it comes off within like 1 or 2 seconds and it dries up. That's what we want. So I'm going to brush it on and let it sit there 1 or 2 seconds, and then I'm going to go and dry it off. And then I'm going to repeat this until I get good enough coverage, and then after satisfied, I'm going to go to the next side and repeat that for all sides of the part. Alright, and then now I've finished applying the rust solution. I'm going to go and rinse off the remaining salt just to make sure I don't get any in my water bath. And now I finished rinsing it off. I'm going to go and put it back in my bath and repeat this until I get the coverage I want. All right, so now we finished our bluing process. You should have converted all the rust. There should be no rusting solution on here. If there is, make sure to rinse it and go boil it one more time just to make sure we converted all the rust. And now we're gonna check that we got all the spots. If there's a couple minor spots, that's fine. If we see in here, there's some surface rust. That might just be from our solution. We got dirty. And if we can just rub that off with our fingers or with the cloth here. Yep, that's just surface. It's not rusting over there. So we're gonna wanna make sure we got everywhere. If we missed anywhere, you wanna put the rust solution on that area and go rinse it and reboil it. So now that we're satisfied with our coverage, we're gonna go and oil it up. So if you wanna go and check if it's deep enough before you oil it, one thing you can do is you can take some water on a towel and then you can wipe it on the receiver. And that'll give you sort of an idea of what it'll look like. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. It took about seven times to get this. So I'm just gonna hose it down with some Ballistol. And you might see some spots that you missed, and that's fine. You just go degrease this thing again. Make sure you get all the oil off, or as much as you can. And then you just repeat the process. Alright, so now we're going to wipe off the excess oil. This will really show us what it looks like. Alright, so now that we've got all the excess oil off of this, you can see how it'll look. So to me, that looks pretty even. Looks pretty good. I think it's about as good as I can get. Replicates, it's pretty much what it's going for with the finish. So I recommend doing this before assembly, and if you have any extra parts or any like operations you got to do, you can always go back or if it gets any scuffs during assembly, you can always go back and redo this. So it's pretty easy to touch up. All right, so if you want to see unfinished receiver. All right, and here for comparison is a unfinished part. You can see that it's much darker. It looks very nice. It's I like the matte finishes more. Some people may like the shinier finishes, but I believe the matte makes it look more professional. All right, thanks for watching, guys. You can like, subscribe, watch my other videos. I'll see you guys in the next one.